Alright, people. Alright. Wait there. Alright. What do we have here? Let me just check. Is live, people. Doing it. Un momentico. Alright. Let me just flip this back here. Flip that over there. Right now we're doing it. Alright. So first of all, can everybody hear me okay? Let me just check. I've got a whole new mic system, people. Here it is. Look at that. This is magic. هذا سحر. ما هذا. It's way too late, people. Asrar is my dad. Sheikh Asrar is my dad. Somebody's dad. Sheikh Asrar. Acha. Un momentico. Let me just share this out to my other page. If I could just get a sound check by the Janta. Wagwan. Alright, Zulu Warrior, you're doing it. Salam from Houston. Houston, we have a problem. Alright. I'm not getting no let me just share this first. Just be a second, people, a second. There it is. Yep, that's me. Right there. Q&A. Live and unrestricted, people. And that's done. Alright. Inna alhamdulillah wa kafah. والصلاة والسلام على رسوله المصطفى وعلى عباده الذين ارتضى ومن بهداهم اهتدى وبآثار أهل المدينة اقتفى وبعد people فالسلام الله على القوم أهلا وسهلا بكم ومرحبا Juan Ying Layth, bienvenidos de nuevo esta semana, people, and swagatam. So, what is going on? Que lo que, mi gente? Que lo que? What's bothering the awesome folk? You know what? This is a little problem now. This mic has me so pushed up against the whole. Yeah, ho ka raha hai. Babwa ye ho ka raha hai. Let me just bring up my Facebook gente. Just make sure I've got I know what they're saying, what's going on. Alright, there they are. Kian, you could do it. There they are. Alright, people. So, Mufti threw my week off last week by not showing up. Allah. Gustachi maaf. Energy Gustachi maaf. Mufti, are you going to debate Sheikh Asrar? Sheikh Asrar ji ab ka kare? You know what the problem is? Guys, it's gone beyond that now. This has now become an addiction, an obsession for Sheikh Asrar. You see, I warn people that, I have this, it's a curse, people. I have this thing about my personality that if you get too much, if you focus on me too much, you'll get addicted. And that's the problem with my beloved Sheikh Asrar. He's now isko ab lat lag gayi hai. He's addicted. He can't get me out of his mind. Yeah, this is what I was saying. There's people out there who have this trouble. They're being chased by the opposite gender. They're having all this with exes. They're having all this going on. And me, I've got people like Sheikh Asrar obsessed about me. Vare kismat vah. Ma hada. Ya salam. Right, I wouldn't be surprised if he does dream about me. You know, this week Sheikh Asrar has been begging it so much. I mean, he's made in 1 week 2 posts about me. Just 2 posts about me in 1 week. I'm like, wow. I didn't realize I preoccupy your thoughts to that extent. And somebody had messaged me that he's gone live about me right now at my timing. Yar waha. This is it. Imitation is the highest form of flattery. Allah. Ar-Rashidiya sahib. Rashidiya. Right, so let's take a look at what is it that's bothering the people. So we're going to take a look at some questions today. Obviously, I will be coming to my Sheikh, my beloved Asrar. I'll be coming to him towards the end, Masala segment, Masala, Mufti-Masala, right? But I'll be taking a look at some serious issues as well today. The whole marriage of the Prophet to Zainab, responding to the atheist claims that this was the Prophet lusting over another man's wife, and debunking these false claims. And I'll also talk about how that originated, how did it creep into Islam, or into some narrations of Islam. I'll take a look at that as well. But also, somebody saying speak into the microphone. Is it not catching my voice? Is this not catching? Is it not? Does it not catch my voice? Kya? Ma, ya salam, ya salam. Right, so link to that live stream. Village wars. Can you speak about Ridda wars? Ridda wars. Doubles, no, nothing compared to Asrar's live feed, which doubles your viewers. Vah. Sheikh Asrar is live now. You see, this is what happens when you get so obsessed with me that you even try to imitate the Monday nights with Mufti. Ya salam. It's a curse, people. It's a curse. I have this effect on people. It's not something to be proud of. You know, as the poet said, कि ये हुस्न भी क्या बुरी बला है, जिसने डाली बुरी नजर डाली. The poet, he said that this beauty is a thing that is a curse, that whosoever glanced upon it did so with malicious intent. But I don't know what beauty Sheikh Asrar sees. Maybe he reminds him of madrasa days, you know, this one. Right, so, right, what's going on? What is going on, people? People are saying hello. Come on, bro, why don't you both sit together? Why don't you both sit together, man? Just sit together, man. You see, the thing is, I've told you Sheikh Asrar's heartache is beyond that now. It's not about, this is beyond therapy now. But I love it. The effect I have on people by just sitting here using my internet for 2 hours a week and just broadcasting, and the effect it has on people's lives and minds, and the way they become obsessed. This one nice, you know, this one. So, views on what is going on. Let's take a look at what's preoccupying mi gente. People, an actual fatwa that it's haram even. You've tried, and so have others. I'm trying to look for some questions. Live now. The flawed methodology of Abu Layth. Hi. That's the story of my life. Flaws. Full of flaws. Phir bhi. And yet, I still have this devastating effect on these individuals. Ah, shame on them. How they beg for my attention to stay relevant. So, let's get started with what's been going on this week. What are somebody's asking about a fiqh straight away into an usuli question. We'll get to that. Somebody said you speak negatively of Bahari Mirpuri. Kahe ko yaar? Mirpuri vi sari apni boli. Why would I speak negatively of Mirpuri? Let me just see. Damn, the question's gone. And like that, it's gone. What can we do? So, did Ibn Abbas and Ibn Masoud say idle talk refers to music in the Quran? These things are not well established. And the point is that, first of all, they're not that clearly established, the chains. They're not that clearly established. And even if they are, I'm not saying that there's never been an opinion of somebody, no matter how virtuous the person was, that music is haram. I'm sure there's been many a soul who've looked down upon music with, as muharram, as haram. But the question is, ultimately, atiullah wa atiur Rasul. Bring us the Quran and the Sunnah. The Quran or the Sunnah. The clear Quran or the clear Sunnah. Phir baat banti hai yaar. Then, let us da'na natahaddath, then we'll speak. Obviously, if it's not the clear Quran, the clear Sunnah, then opinions of people, we respect them. Somebody can say, look, I don't want to listen to music. Don't listen to it. Kya? And end of story. Why is it bothering anybody else? Mufti, are you going to attend the Ghamidi Sahib event in Birmingham? I'm not 100% sure. I am trying to arrange to meet up with Ghamidi Sahib when he's here. I'll see how that goes. I do have a psychology kind of like event as well going on the same date when he's here. So I'm a bit, I don't know. And that's kind of all booked as well. So I've got to see how it's happening. But I hear Ghamidi Saab's here for a short while. So let's see if we can arrange something to meet him. Right. Atiullah wa atiur Rasul. Wa ulil amri minkum. Allah. But then, zara, istamir. Continue. Zara आगे भी पढ़िए. यहाँ क्यों छोड़े हैं आप? وَأُولِي الْأَمْرِ مِنْكُمْ فَإِنِ اخْتَلَفْتُمْ. But if there's ikhtilaf, فَرُدُّوهُ إِلَى اللَّهِ وَالرَّسُولِ. But if you disagree, then back to Allah and His Messenger only. Solamente. Okay, so this is the problem, you see. They don't read the full verse. Then they say my methodology is flawed. This happens. All right, Mark Lonzetta, you're doing it. One moment. Could you explain the main dispute between Imam Malik and Layth ibn Sa'ad in fiqh? Right, all right. What a fiqhy question. Right, so that sounds intriguing. So those of you that don't know, Imam Malik is obviously... Sorry, I was just slightly distracted. Just trying to... There's a question here, right? Mark Lonzetta, I'm just going to come to your question. It's a very interesting one. Somebody here is repeating his question. Yusuf Hamza. Is repeating his question. Can a pregnancy test waive the idda period? emergency lag rahi hai humka. This is an emergency question. You know, there's a pregnancy test taking place. Shall we, Yusuf Hamza, shall we all wait whilst you get the results? Do you want to share if it's is it a 1 strike or a 2 strike? And some of us can quickly provide your link to we can provide that to the CSA, Child Support Agency. Right, so can the but okay, let's help brother Yusuf Hamza, who's having a little issue, which makes sense, people, makes sense. Obviously, pregnancy not to be taken lightly. So can it waive, can the test waive the iddah period? Well, I would say no. I would say the iddah period is simply a grace period following a talaq, a divorce. Oh, sorry. Sorry, yaar. Sorry, man. Sorry. Right, so, but I would add that the iddah is not just for, it's not just for the pregnancy. The pregnancy is a key factor, but I think sometimes it has other social ramifications. It is important to understand that the iddah is simply a prohibition of nikah, nothing else. The woman can do as she pleases, you know, she can work, go out, shopping, leisure, do whatever she wants. The simple prohibition is at least one menstrual cycle, 1 month at the least, or generally speaking, 3 menstrual cycles where there is no new nikah. The reason for this, it has other kind of like social procedures in place, and it's to really, I think it's to promote or prevent a lack of social cohesion. So people sometimes, like I've mentioned this before, if a marriage ended today and the girl, let's say somebody got married again immediately tomorrow or the day after, this can sometimes lead to a huge amount of social unrest, like people saying, oh, maybe, you know, this is the reason this relationship broke down, is this was being plotted, in fact maybe there was an affair going on this whole while, maybe, you know, this is, and it would just, it's just, there's so much of a headache involved that you see the Sharia had a lot of wisdom in placing a grace period, in just allowing people to kind of just move on, even if it's within a certain amount of weeks, with their own lives, and then kind of like embark on new relationships. It also prevents, sometimes it gives the time or reflection period to avoid the kind of being on the rebound. ये भी होता है, you know, it's sometimes some people are on the rebound, you know, so they're like, I know I make a mistake, you know, this one, I rush into this relationship. So it gives them some kind of thinking. Okay, so cool. All right, so that's that. Right, so, right, I thought it was to make sure she's not pregnant, somebody said. That's also one of the wisdoms. There's plenty of wisdom. Wisdom galore, people. Wisdom galore. Oh, ye of little faith. Have some more faith in this faith. Right, let's come to Mark Lonzetta's question. All right, so Mark Lonzetta has asked the question. Whoa. R.S. Sid. Blessings. Vah. Much love right back at ya. Look at this. Super chats. Sending super chats to kind of support this effort and this channel. Vah, vah, vah. Mwah. Gio Merijan. Right, so and then we've got somebody who's posted 6 times. Hey, bro, is masturbation haram? His master. I've heard of masturbation. This is masturbation, right? Well, guys, what's involved in this master? and he's written it 6 times in capital letters. I don't know. I don't know what's going on here, people. Is this well, maybe we should just let man's a legend. Man's a legend, innit? Man's a legend, innit? Oh, innit? Innit, cuzzy bro. So let's get back to the question about Imam Malik and about Imam Layth ibn Sa'ad. These are both dons of their era. They're contemporaries. They're people who have really contributed to the understanding of this deen. Okay, Hudhayfa, shukran, much love. Right. So the Imam Malik was the Don of Medina. He lived in Medina. He represents the school of Medina. Layth ibn Sa'ad is a contemporary who was from what is modern day Cairo. Back then they called it Fustat. Now he lived over there. He had a different way of thinking, a different perspective of this deen, and they clashed on certain things. But on many things they had a sense of agreement. Layth ibn Sa'ad was in great awe of Imam Malik. And even though sometimes some people quote some statements of certain scholars to say Layth ibn Sa'ad was more knowledgeable than Imam Malik, but this one hyperbole, this one exaggeration. No, but Layth ibn Sa'ad was a great scholar. He was also somebody who prayed in Sadl, by the way. In Salah he kept his hands at the side, as is the school of Medina, as is Imam Malik. And his madhab. And they had many similarities, but there's a popular letter that is published in which Imam Malik writes to Layth ibn Sa'ad. Allah, imagine that, huh? You're getting, in this getting a letter or an email in this day and age from Imam Malik. So the letter said, it gave him salam and it said, Innahu qad balagani. Allah, Allah, Allah. Look at the style. Estilo, people, estilo. Imam Malik goes, it has reached me. Innaka tufti bi ashya tukhalifu fiha ulama'a ahli al-Madina. Allah, Allah. This is why I love the Don of Medina. His style in representing the fiqh of the school of Medina. So he says, it has reached me that you have begun to give rulings, not begun, but you are giving rulings which are in opposition to the people of knowledge in Medina. And this is where this debate begins. So he writes this letter saying this. Now, what happens is he mentions in there a few things. Imam Malik's letter isn't actually that lengthy. It's probably something like about 4 or 5 paragraphs. 4 paragraphs probably, something like that. It's published. I've got it here somewhere. Now then Layth ibn Sa'ad replies to him. Now that's interesting because Layth ibn Sa'ad in his response is trying to critique the practice of Medina. And he says to Imam Malik that, but you claim there's Amalu Ahl al-Medina, there's the practice of the people of Medina in this, but how come Ibn Shihab Zuhri disagrees with this, and you say there's this, but how come this scholar disagrees with that over there? And he criticizes Ibn Shihab Zuhri as well. He says, when he's over there, he's saying something else, and when he's in Medina, he's saying something else, and he's trying to say to Imam Malik, I don't understand this consensus which you're speaking about. It's not a consensus. And I think in some ways he was right and wrong. You see, he was right in the fact that he misunderstood what is meant by Amalu Ahl al-Madina. You see, many people have misunderstood this. They think Imam Malik meant a consensus, that everybody in Medina by and large agreed on this. That's not what he meant. He meant the well-established sunnah of the Prophet that is established through 1,000 different people, even if there are hundreds of others that disagree with them. You understand? So when a hadith comes from one person to another person to the Prophet, imagine having that same teaching but from 1,000. So this is why Imam Malik said, Alfun an alf ahabbu ilayya min wahid an wahid. That 1,000 from 1,000 are much more beloved to me than just one-on-one. Because he said, Al-wahid an wahid yanzi'u ad-din min bayni yadayk, that it will snatch the deen from right in front of you. Bearing in mind, people, keep this in mind, that Imam Malik has the strongest chain in hadith ever by the measurement of Imam Bukhari himself. So that it's called the golden chain when it's one-on-one. But he himself rejects that at times, saying that I will take the en masse transmission. So this is interesting. Right, so what is going on? What is going on? Recommend, right, we've got S. Miyagi, doing it, Miyagi, much love right at you. Recommend me any books in Islamic finance. Oh, right, damn, that just, right. Please mention them slowly so that I can write them down. See, that's interesting because I'm not really too sure of what to recommend when it comes to things like finance, because you see, this is a very contemporaneous kind of discourse. You're not going to get classical books that are like that discuss they discuss financial issues, of course they do, but finance today is a field in and of itself. It wasn't a field like this back then. So, post-industrial revolution, the whole financial field has changed. The revolution in economics, Adam Smith, all these people that have contributed to the science of economics, they've revolutionized the way we think about money now and wealth. Then this has been further revolutionized in our recent times, with the whole thing where, first of all, taking it to the kind of currency that we have, fiat currency, the way things are, the whole system has now changed, and now really cryptocurrency. So I think it's really difficult trying to recommend traditional Islamic books. As to contemporary books, I don't really know what contemporary books to refer to, because I've read a few and they've not really been my kind of way of thinking. So I've not really followed them through that much. My understanding is that our fiqh when it comes to finance is out of sync. We need to update the whole thing. It's completely out of sync. All these people, Sheikh Asrar is trying to get you in his live. Tell him to pick a number and wait. Get in line. You see, I'll be addressing his issues at the end in the Masala segment. Right now, like everybody else, he can sit and watch. Right, so what is going on, man? What is going on? Cool. So, yep, so the finance thing, I'm not really that, I feel that finance is not a sacred kind of science in any way. And we are really to be part and parcel of our day and age. Let me just bring this up slightly. All right, let me just check. Testing. Right, so I think that we are not, we're not meant to be kind of obsessed with just the things of the past in that sense. Okay, there's nothing sacred about the dirham and the dinar, for example. They were simply just an extension of other currencies. The dinar was taken from the Roman denari. That's where it comes from. That's why it's called dinar. And the dirham was taken from the Persian drachma. Okay, so this is where these came in circulation. There's nothing sacred about them. It's not like it's a sacred science. Cool. Somebody's asking, how's the keto diet? I mean, I haven't actually been on a keto, but I've been kind of dieting. or watching my diet. And I've been working out. I mean, I work out anyway, but I've kind of upped the game on some cardio and um, trimming down. I've trimmed down a bit. All right. Right, so that's it, really. What else is going on? Dervish Ottoman, you're doing it. Much love right back at you. So, Salamu Alaikum from Kuwait, Atif Rana ji. Kya baat hai yaar, all the way from Minal Kuwait. Shukran. MashaAllah. Did Abu Bakr al-Jassas restrict khamr to date and grape alcohol only? Right, so who's asking this? Handsome Hound. Oh, Handsome Hound. The hounds of hell are asking that what did Abu Bakr al-Jassas. Now, I like Abu Bakr al-Jassas from the Hanafiya. He's a great mind, honestly. He's undervalued, if you ask me, by the Hanafis. I don't think the Hanafis really appreciate him as much as they ought to. He's a legend, in my understanding. He's also one of the few people who had the courage to speak up and say that the Prophet did not have magic done onto him. Okay. Unlike today, you've got these Asrar, meow, of Ahl Sunnah openly claiming that the Prophet had magic done onto him, became clumsy, did all these kind of things. This is the problem. And then they speak about we ought to respect the Prophet. I mean, if you're calling the Prophet clumsy and you're calling him forgetful and you're saying he forgot verses of the Quran, but acha, mashallah, but you guys can remember them. The Prophet forgot them, but you guys can remember them. Shabash. And some of them go as far as saying the Prophet became impotent. So you've got these kind of, this kind of nonsense being preached by people. And Abu Bakr al-Jassas was one of the great minds in early Islam. We're talking like something, from today, maybe over 1100 years ago. So he wrote clearly that anybody that says this is ignorant, that the Prophet was never bewitched or things like this, and these are just stories that people have made up. He was also somebody to debunk things like exorcisms and all this kind of stuff. Say that this is, it's nonsensical in that sense. But Sheikh Asrar is el gato de Ahl Sunnah. Meow. Right, so, speaking of Jassas, Abu Bakr al-Jassas, I do have a book somewhere dedicated to the discourse on alcohol and how people kind of began to disagree amongst it within the Islamic world. But the Hanafis did feel that alcohol was restricted. Khamr in the Quran was restricted to just dates and grapes. That's it. So really that's it. And everything else they said you couldn't call it khamr, but you could call it an intoxicant. But everything else by default, so most of the beer today and things like this, from grapes really is just going to be wine or maybe brandy, things like that. You're not going to really get, that's that field only really. Most of beers and other kind of spirits and things like this today will be produced, will not fall under the khamr category according to several Hanafis. They will fall under intoxicants, but they by default, if they don't intoxicate, they're not meant to be haram, according to many of the Hanafis, in essence. Like, meaning that if they were weak in their kind of percentage of alcohol. Now, this is why many scholars do say, and I played in the past a clip of Uthaymeen as well, where they say that if something intoxicates it has about 3% alcohol. In fact, that's what Uthaymeen's clip, which is on YouTube, saying that if it has 2-3% alcohol, it's okay. He's like, yaar, kabhi. What is it? पानी से प्यास ना बुझी तो मैं खाने की तरफ चल निकले. This is Sheikh Uthaymeen Sahib. Somebody saying, can I get a message from a woman? Gus Fring, what the hell is going on here? People, where's my admin? Oh, can a man get a message from a woman? What does that even mean? 4 shots of 3%. Right. Can a man get a massage? Oh, sorry. You see, people, the difference between one vowel. Those of you that undermine vowels, shame on you. You thought she was trying to message you and you were ignoring her. Are yaar, she was trying to give them a massage, not the message. Or if you turn up for a massage and she says it was message, it was massage, message, not massage. Lena Kass, Mufti, can you do my nikah? Would you really want somebody like me performing the nikah? You want to go to these traditional Maulanas, they come and they'll do the customary traditional routine. Somebody like me, people would be like, what the hell? I thought a Mufti was going to come as well. Right, so... Can drugs which alter consciousness, are they also haram? I don't believe that psychedelics are necessarily haram. Okay, now, things like DMT, I'm not saying that people need to be doing these things, but what I'm saying is I don't believe that they're haram per se. So, right, so Abu Layth, you don't fear Allah, lying against his Sharia constantly. Against his Sharia constantly lying. You don't fear. This is the problem. Yeah, tell me, rather than fearing Allah, I love Allah. How about that? My concept or my understanding of God is obviously slightly different to your understanding of God. So, you see, to me, God is not this kind of angry, jealous, kind of like somebody who can't control, or somebody who just gets into a temper and wants to punish people and wants to. To me, that's not the understanding I have of God. So obviously, you're more than welcome to have that understanding, and you can have it. To me, I think if there's things in this world that we can fathom, imagine. Obviously, we can't imagine how, to the infinite kind of degree of understanding that Allah would have for them. So how can we be like, oh, I get it, but but God's saying no, you can't do that. That doesn't make any sense. You see, so. Right, now, what was I saying before I got distracted? Yes, about psychedelics. So things like DMT, I think these things are incredibly fascinating. I think that it's a shame that really the Muslim culture doesn't really have an exploratory kind of curiosity on these matters. I do feel that it kind of unlocks a different realm, the realm of of consciousness that is unlocked through these psychedelics. I think that would be amazing. Things like psilocybin, obviously DMT, these kind of things are. I mean, it's ridiculous that the governments have them as Class A drugs. I think that's ridiculous and preposterous. I don't understand that these things are actually called by many kind of shamans and people like this. They call them entheogens. That these are things. These are not like just hallucinogens. They're entheogens. They connect one with the sublime. Allah, Allah. Lack of opinion on Dawah Man. Please explain why the Prophet married. Yes, I'm going to come to that. Somebody said, respond to me, yaar. Chico. Chico. Alright. ¿Qué tal, Chico? Opinion on Dawah Man. Obviously, I mean, what do you think my opinion on Dawah Man would be? It's going to be exactly what you imagine. Dawah Man is just very dramatic, over dramatic about things, and I obviously can't agree. I don't think I would agree when it comes to understanding of faith on, maybe put a tiny percentage aside that we probably agree on, and I'm sure everything else we just disagree on our entire perspective. That's a very, he comes from a very kind of doom and gloom perspective. Everything's apocalyptic, everything's about fearing, everything's about sin, it's sin centric. The whole deen is about guilt. It's about haram, 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 haram. Obviously, most of what he says is haram. Maybe not all, but many of the things I wouldn't believe they're haram anyway. But that said, even if they would, but this approach I disagree with so much. So, Salam, I like your philosophy because of how balanced and reasonable it is. Can I use this mindset without clashing with my close people who are strict? Ismail Akram, of course you can. Of course you can. And shukran for your kind words and much appreciated, much love for the super chat. But yes, of course you can. That is absolutely correct. And it really, one should use a balanced. You see, people, look, I openly say my kind of personality is eccentric. I'm by no way claiming to be generally in my kind of behavior. In my behavior, I don't think I'm normal like normal people. I accept that I have a crazy sense of humor. And I'm very eccentric. I recognize that, obviously. I'd be stupid if I don't recognize that. So but I am who I am at the end of the day. And I don't really care about, I'm not going to change it for other people. But I'm not that part aside, put that aside, my kind of eccentricity kind of thing. But the message that I give is one of reason that this deen ought to make sense to people. So that's my message. So I get the fact that, to some people they say, oh, Mufti laughs too much, he does this too much, he does that too much. And why not? As I often say, that any moment spent in laughter is never a moment wasted. So, I mean, these things are just who I am, but put that aside. You should definitely, if you can take the message of what I'm saying, that's that's what really is important to me. Momo is in the house. All right, Momo, you're doing it. Right, so what else is going on? Somebody's Shadman asking about. I'm not ignoring. I am going to. I've got a whole detailed analysis ready for you guys on the marriage of Zainab bint Jash with the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. So don't worry, I'm going to come exactly to that. Mufti, is it true that laughing excessively is bad for the soul? Hell no. If anything, it is nourishment for the soul. I tell you seriously, I think that humor. Just think about it. God created humor. There's humor in this world. What would this world be like without humor? I mean, it would just it's so amazing that, have you ever thought that we can't, even in psychology? I remember once going through this whole kind of research on humor and laughter, and Freud has some writing on it, and there's obviously several other people that have written on humor. We still can't comprehend humor. Like, we don't understand it. It's beyond our current human comprehension. Like, why do we? I mean, we've got theories. I'm not saying we haven't got theories, but it's not a clear understanding. Why do we actually find certain things funny? Why is the punchline funny for us? Why is it if we see somebody fall over, we just uncontrollably laugh? Like, especially if you're watching, let's say you're watching a meme of somebody jumping and it's something unexpected happens. Now people say, oh, that's a nerve, that's the mind kind of coping. It's a coping mechanism, and it's a kind of nervous reaction to kind of calm you down. But it's not really a compelling answer, is it? Some people, is it Schadenfreude? Is it what is going? I think things like humor, things like love, are actually, you take these kind of two sentiments, or these two phenomena, they are beyond human comprehension. And I feel in many ways they are therefore they are kind of like a sublime gift that we have as human beings. Right, so what is right? Jojo, you're starting to look more and more like like a Bollywood star. Wah, 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 wah. Yeah, this one, this one teasing me, naughty, naughty. Right, so what about the hadith where it says laughing hardens the heart? You see, this is my point exactly. The hadith, إن كثرة الضحك تنبت النفاق, that it produces hypocrisy or it hardens the heart. ضعيف ضعيف hadith, ضعيف. Bring me sahih hadith. If you want to bring hadith, bring it sahih. That's what I say. Bring me the voice of reason, or bring me something that cannot be critiqued. Then we can talk. Right, so somebody said something about a poem. I came across this. I was reading something, and this poem. Actually, I was chatting to Dr. Imran from Metroflex, and he'd mentioned the poem as well. But there's a slight variant to it. I think he had attributed it to Faraz, but there's a slight variant as well, where it says that कौन किसी के खातिर रोता है ए दोस्त, सबको अपनी ही किसी बात पे रोना आया. Vah, vah. It's amazing that he says that who kind of, because the person, the image or the scene is that somebody must have relayed something traumatic or dramatic, and the people listening have cried. And the poet is saying that, well, who cries at the story or at the situation of somebody else? In reality, everybody's crying over their own trauma. Which in many ways is kind of true. People kind of relate to things, and then it triggers, and then they get emotional. Speaking about things like that, Caroline Flack, this whole thing, I wanted to say a few words on this. So the tragic news of her suicide has emerged just after Valentine's Day. Now, I didn't really know who she was before this. I don't watch at all Love Island or things like this. Although I do see a lot of memes taken out of it on Instagram, but I don't really watch any of that, and I didn't really know until this had happened and she was all over the news. So I was watching it, that who is this person, and the tragic kind of events and the whole trolling and the hating. And on a side note, it's interesting in that alone that, you see, the fact that me as a person, and maybe there's many other people who'd never really heard of her, but it's with her demise that we become aware of her. And it's an irony, an overwhelming irony, that our mortality in ways may immortalize us. That's, as a concept, that is so overwhelming that's that how we, in many cases. But getting back to this point, that apparently she had some. There was a court case going on of abuse between her and a boyfriend. I think she'd kind of smashed his head in with a lamp, right? Which obviously is not a good thing. But so I think there was some kind of court case going on and all these restrictions. But the media were going mad in trolling her, paparazzis, media, hate online, all this kind of stuff. Maybe this was my speculation. I thought maybe the fact of being lonely and then Valentine's Day, because it's given so much hype as well, may have contributed to that. Maybe not. But the day after she commits, or on that night she commits suicide. Now, I think that, just reflecting on this whole phenomena, the kind of power that we as human beings have now with the internet it's so disturbing, and I've spoken about this in the past. It's so scary that we've kind of acquired these almost godlike powers where we can cast people, into this kind of eternal damnation by things online where the internet never forgets. It has the ability to forever remember, which an ability previously only attributed to God. Inna Rabbi la yadillu wa la yansa. My Lord who does not forget and is neither misguided. But here, this power that we have, and people gang up and they kind of troll the hell out of individuals. A kind of from a safe distance, they have an opportunity to really kind of chastise and cast out their inner demons, and then just switch that off and go back to being, these apparently nice people. And I find that very disturbing, and I just think that this whole phenomenon, it's something that is right now leading to a huge discussion on should the media be restricted in their powers and things like this to really just troll the hell out of someone. And I do believe in a free press, but I also do understand that in this world it's all about just selling stories, and people can be so cruel. So I just wanted to share some of those words. It is I from there was something I heard that she had said, and I thought that is an amazing thing. I mean, I don't that it was attribute. I mean, it said she had said it. I don't know whether she was just reading it from somewhere, but she had posted on one of her things saying, "In a world where you can be anything, be kind." And I thought that's an amazing quotation, really, because it is so true that when we have so much potential in this day and age to become things, that we so overlook just these simple qualities of being like, why not just be kind or be a good human? But yeah, I mean, that's may Allah, any person who is suffering from these things, may Allah grant them ease. Okay, and whoever they are, wherever they are, whatever faith they belong to, people who have died of tragic deaths, may Allah grant them a blessed afterlife, and their family in this world, may Allah, make things easy for them. And it's not just her. There's many people who commit suicide. I mean, weekly, if you just see the statistics, and may Allah make things easy. Right, so, okay, let's move on to some other questions. What are these questions? Right, so, internet has exposed the true nature of people. It's right to be disturbed. Yeah, I mean, I get that. Internet exposes people as well, but I feel that it's an opportunity to kind of really hate as well. Is it haram to make a pilgrimage to Petra? Petra is not where we make pilgrimage to. Right, so it's not where we make pilgrimage to. But I mean, it's not haram to go to Petra, but I mean, it wouldn't be counted as a pilgrimage. Oh, I've been having a public. My other obsession is drilled Ertugrul. Yeah, that's something I've not really got into. Is there ijma? Arabs and Quraysh are superior and therefore rulership is only for them? If not, please name scholars. Oh, you see, the thing with the Arabs being superior goes against the true understanding of the Quran. It goes against the established Sunnah. And I think the hadith that the Prophet said, Al-A'immatu min Quraysh, that the Imams are from Quraysh, was more a descriptive statement reflecting the status quo of the Arabs at the time. Because the Arabs at the time had seemed to have, I mean, they were a rough, obviously, kind of people, but they seemed to have accepted the leadership of Quraysh. So at that stage, to disturb that status quo would now really just mess things up. It's not like they weren't ready for something else. It's a bit like saying that it's like how America goes into, let's say it's gone into Iraq, said, look, let's get rid of a dictatorship. And what we're going to do is this is going to turn into some kind of Europe. But the truth is, the people are not really ready like that. It took Europe a considerable amount of time after World War II to arrive at these kind of expansive ways of thinking, these kind of liberal lifestyles or liberal mindset, this kind of love of liberty, freedoms, tolerance. These things take decades to kind of brew within a society. It's not just about, we come, knock this leader off, replace him with somebody else, and now it's like a mini Vienna or something like that. It doesn't work like that. And America's obviously had to, they've had other vested interests, but this is their pretext that we're doing it for the sake of democracy. In a similar way, the Arabs at the time of the Prophet ﷺ, when the Prophet had established Islam and a lot of the Arabian Peninsula was kind of succumbing to the Islamic superiority, at that stage they had kind of accepted Quraysh. It was the kind of status quo. So to disrupt that would have just meant that it would just create chaos. So the Prophet said that let the leaders, not let the, but the leaders are from Quraysh, al-a'immatu min Quraysh. Did this mean forever leaders can only be Qurayshi? That's, absurd. Because why? Why Qurayshi? What makes somebody so great if they're Qurayshi? Now, so this is, but that said, many scholars did start to put this down, especially the Shafi'is, Ghazali, and all these people write this, that the person has to be Qurashi. Hence, hence they've had just like people for the sake of their name, some weak kind of like absolutely powerless man. He's been given the name of Caliph just because he's Qurashi and from the Abbasid household, but really everybody else runs the show, and they just give him a slap every now and then, and this went on for centuries, this drama. And then obviously it went on to the Seljuks, then the Ottomans, and these people were not. This is why they didn't call themselves caliphs, by the way, because they thought that, well, we're not Arabs, we're not Qurashi and stuff. But this whole caliph thing is kind of nonsensical. I mean, it's not. It's the way we think of it is nonsensical anyway. It's a fantasy. There was never meant to be this kind of like, oh, the whole world will be under one kind of ruler. It would never work like that. Right, so cool. All right, and the Hanafis did challenge this understanding very early on, by the way. So, what is going on? What is going on, people? Right, oh, right, there was an issue. I'll read this out, actually. I came across this. I was taking a look. This is a commentary on the hadith which are agreed upon in Sahihain, in Bukhari and Muslim, Zad al-Muslim, fi mattafaqa alayhi al-Bukhari wa Muslim, and it's a commentary on it, right, by, you've got Sheikh Muhammad al-Shanqiti, Muhammad Habib al-Shanqiti. Now, I believe right. So I believe the father. I believe he's the father of Muhammad al-Amin. But anyway, Muhammad Habib al-Shanqiti. But the interesting thing is, I was reading the hadith about like women plucking eyebrows and doing this kind of stuff. Now I have mentioned in the past that Malikis do not say anyway that a woman can't do that stuff. In fact, Dardir and these scholars say a woman can pluck her eyebrows and she can do these things. There's nothing, it's not haram. Although the other madhabs are a bit kind of weird about it. So here you had this issue on what if a woman has a beard? What if she's rocking a kind of beard? So he goes through the kind of the whole ikhtilaf. Now, so some of them look لكن قيده بعضهم بما بما إذا كان بعلم الزوج وإذنه, right? If the husband grants her permission, then she can shave. It's like, husband, may I today? Gillette. No, I like that stubble. And then Nawawi says, Imam Nawawi, he adds that this is the Shanqiti, the scholar who's bringing these quotes. He says, قول النووي فلا تحرم إزالتها بل تستحب. He says that Imam Nawawi said, actually it's not haram. Don't worry about what these people are saying. For a woman, she can remove her facial hair. Yeah, so, and then Shanqiti goes on to say, هذا إنما هو على مذهبه. This is upon the Shafi'i kind of way of thinking. أما على مذهبنا المالكية, us Malikis. He says, فمذهبنا تجب إزالة ذلك عن المرأة. He says, it is wajib. What are you talking about? He says it's an obligation for her to get rid of that beard. Ah, yeah, salam. I read that and I was like, oh, I've got to share this. Right, so what is going on? What is going on? No, but men can obviously shave as well. Qadi Iyad does mention that, okay, they considered it makruh, but our makruh isn't haram anyway, but chalta yaar. I've got a video on that anyway. Right, so, I'll tell you what, let's take a look at this issue of the marriage of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam to Zainab bint Jash. So I'd like to give some clarity on this issue. Right, so first of all, a bit of a backdrop. So a lot of people have they've tried to, try to kind of create an entire scandal out of this incident. The issue is, what is the incident? As in, what really happened? But the allegations that are being thrown at the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam are that the Prophet married Zainab. I mean, that's not an allegation because that's something that happened. He married Zainab bint Jash. The allegation is that the Prophet lusted over her. She was his cousin. She was the daughter of his aunt, his actual aunt, Umayma, who is the daughter of Abdul Muttalib. So she was his daughter, Zainab. And her actual name wasn't Zainab, by the way, it was Barra. But the Prophet, after he married her, he changed her name to Zainab. So she's known now as Zainab bint Jash. And she was somebody that at the time of Hijrah, when she moved to Medina, she was in her early 30s. Right. So this whole incident that it's been kind of like pieced together and sketched is really pinned with certain allegations that the Prophet lusted over her, that the Prophet apparently saw her naked and things like this and became so infatuated with her and all of these things. And this is utter nonsense, utter nonsense. They say the Prophet became besotted by her beauty and he couldn't kind of get her out of his mind, and Zayd was kind of felt bad about this, so because she was his wife, and so Zayd kind of offers to divorce her for the Prophet, and all this goes on, and then eventually the Prophet marries her because has a verse revealed of the Quran, which is in Surah Ahzab, to kind of fulfill this fantasy, so to speak. Now, these are utter nonsensical allegations. So first of all, before going into these allegations, I'd like to explain briefly what actually did happen. Okay, so yes, it is factual that and then we'll go into it in more detail, and we'll look at some of these, what these narrations are, and how these narrations crept in, and what was the origin of these, the kind of etiology where this kind of almost this virus emerges from. So what's happened is, yes, she was definitely a cousin of the Prophet. She was from his family. The family were generally close with the Prophet. She was from the early believers. Zayd does marry her. Now, Zayd, by the way, is Zayd ibn Haritha. He is somebody who, as a young boy, was taken into slavery by some kind of raiding tribes. They kind of take him into slavery and they sell him. Some people say in Suq Uqad, some narrations, Ibn Ashur says it was in Suq Hubasha. But the point is, he gets sold as a child. He's brought by Hakim ibn Hizam, who then gifts him, like passes him on. This is pre-Islam, that kind of time, or sorry, very early into Islam. Gifts him to Khadija, who's the aunt of that person. So he kind of passes this boy as a kind of servant, says, why don't you have this boy to kind of help you do stuff. So here he moves into the home of the Prophet. So this is how the Prophet kind of gets to know him. He really gets on with the Prophet to a great extent. Khadija says that, she kind of dedicates him to the Prophet, says that you have him, just take it, you got an amazing kind of relationship with him. Now, what happens is his parents actually stumble upon him. They find out where he is and they come, and the Prophet frees him from being a slave. And when the parents come, the Prophet offers him that, why don't you go with your family? And he says that, I want to stay with you. Akhtaruka, I choose you over them. So the Prophet does ask him, are you sure about this? He says yes. And here the family kind of accept it because they realize it's not as a slave. He's kind of like a freed person and he's doing this willfully. So at this stage, the Prophet formally adopts him. Now, in that day and age, adopting somebody formally was to make them your kind of like virtual kind of blood. They now carry the same tribal laws as your actual blood do. So the Prophet says in a narration, "Arithuka wa tarithuni." You can now. I will bequeath to you. You can inherit from me. We are now like as good as blood. So he became known as Zayd ibn Muhammad. But he had this thing, because he was spent a considerable amount of time as a slave. In a society like that, they really, unfortunately, they look down on slaves, the people at large. So there were certain things that later on, not at that stage, but later on now he's with the Prophet, he's known as the Prophet's son. They used to call him Zayd ibn Muhammad. He kind of learns, he grows up, he matures, he gets much older. Now, the Prophet wants to marry him off and break this kind of tribal custom of, slaves are like second-class citizens. Or these are ex-slaves. He's not even a slave, but he's carrying the baggage. And the Prophet wants to break that. So this is in Medina, by the way, now. So we're not even talking, this is years later. The Prophet proposes to Zainab to marry him. Now, initially, Zainab wasn't really so keen on this marriage because of the social stigma was really strong. Now, people today don't really understand this sometimes. They think that, oh, when, this is like, sorry, Muslim romanticists. They think, oh, when Islam came, everybody became this kind of, oh, I am now a Muslim. I have forgotten all kinds of prejudices. I have now become. It was nothing. They were still the very same people they were. They still had the tribal baggage. They still had the same biases and prejudices. They still had the same social customs. They weren't actually, they just embraced a faith. That's all. They weren't. So Zainab at first wasn't that kind of willing. Um, and she kind of like was. Then the Prophet himself goes and asks her that, look, why don't you marry? I think it would be like he's a great person. And Zayd was a great person. He had an amazing personality. So she agrees to marrying him. So this is the kind of backdrop to this. Now, what happens in the relationship that kind of ensues from that is there is, as in many relationships, there is a lot of kind of turbulence. But I mean, not in many, sorry, but there is sometimes up and down. You get a lot of ups and downs in normal relationships, but this did get quite turbulent at times. The reason being, a lot of the narrations have presented that Zainab still kind of felt this sense of embarrassment sometimes about his past, him being a slave, and she felt that and sometimes they would have some arguments, and people have disagreed what the arguments were over. Some people said, oh, that they weren't having children, and so he sometimes was a bit like he was kind of preoccupied with this, that we haven't had any children yet, and it's been a while, and she, maybe some people have speculated that may have kind of led to arguments, and she in turn would say to him sometimes, remind him that you're like you're of a lower status than me. At the end of the day. So this is the kind of stuff that different people have mentioned, certain narrations. There is some speculation, but what is known is that there was a lot of turbulence in their relationship. Now, the Prophet ﷺ does come to learn about this. He comes to learn about the turbulence. Now, but it's an ongoing thing. It's not like there was a one incident. It was going on for months and months. Now, the Prophet has a dream. Now, Ibn Ashur, some people said, oh, this was revelation as in actual revelation. Ibn Ashur in his tafsir highlights that this, he says, he says, as far as I understand, هذا كان في رؤيا. Okay, that this was a ru'ya. It was a dream that the Prophet had. In this dream, he sees that their relationship breaks down. And he sees that it's not that he sees the relationship just breaking down. He sees that he marries Zainab in the future. Now, the Prophet becomes quite disturbed with this dream, okay, because you see, it's not about marrying Zainab. The issue is that in that custom, in that society, there were certain traits in society which had no basis in the religion, but they were still strong. One of them was, for example, marrying slaves, ex-slaves. This was, or a slave or a former slave. This was seen by the society as an absolute no-no. Like people saw it as, don't be silly, that's, that's an insult to the family. The other thing was, when you had somebody that was an affiliate with your family, like I mentioned, like a spoken, a verbal family member. So they're not actually blood, but you announce them as blood. So the way the Prophet had done with Zayd, you could never intermarry then. So if that person, because they were treated as, so if it was a brother, it's now as though he's your real brother. If it was your son, it's now as though he's your real son. So you wouldn't marry your son's wife, for example. So when the Prophet saw this dream, it did disturb him, because he felt that, this is just ammunition for people to insult and harm the Prophet ﷺ. And so he so it mentions there is a verse that is revealed later on, and we'll come to that verse with where it's highlighted that the Prophet kind of held this within. Now, during this time, Zayd is having difficulties with Zainab, and he comes to the Prophet and says, I want to divorce her. Like, tell me, like, I want to divorce her. I've had enough of her. Like, she's really kind of doing my head in. I can't take this. This is what Zayd comes and complains about her to the Prophet. Now, the Prophet, fearful of his vision and kind of thinking, right, it's interesting the lesson that the Prophet gives us here. Because the Prophet says to him that ittaqillah, that seriously, like, fear Allah. And it's not fear, but be mindful of God. And he says, amsik alayka zawjak. Hold on to the relationship. Maybe you can make it work. Now, that's quoted in the Quran, the Prophet saying that. The Prophet, on one hand, having this vision, but giving the lesson that, is it destiny? We don't know. Is it destiny? But till the nth degree, one must do their utmost best. Not to, maybe it isn't destiny. Maybe destiny is what you will make of it. So the Prophet doesn't kind of say, oh, well, he says, amsik alayka zawjak, wattaqillah. That be mindful of God. And persevere in this relationship. Don't give up. And Zayd continues. He tries for a little while. Now, the issue is that he can't he has enough eventually. And Zayd then does divorce her. At which stage, later on, not it doesn't mean like straight away, but later on, the Prophet ﷺ does marry her. Now, the Prophet did not, you see, the thing was that the Prophet felt it's not about fearing people. The Quran highlights that these customs, you see, because the Arab were an incredibly entrenched society in tribalistic cultures, these things of you're not allowed to, first of all, treating people like second class in saying that, oh, if they're a former slave, you can never marry into them. This issue. The second thing, them saying things like, oh, if a person has a kind of, he is a verbal kind of relative, you can now no longer, these laws have become sacred when they ain't sacred. So one of the things was the people calling Zayd ibn Muhammad. So Allah revealed the verse, "Ud'uhum li'abaihim," that call them by their father's name. And hence Zayd becomes known as Zayd ibn Haritha. And this part, to some extent, did hurt Zayd because he obviously was so close to the Prophet and he really loved being called the son of Muhammad, even though he wasn't the son of the Prophet ﷺ, but he loved that. And you see, it's to console that his name is revealed in the Quran and thereby immortalized, to kind of console him on this thing of him having Muhammad removed from his name. So because he's known as Zayd ibn Haritha, which wasn't a bad thing. I mean, that was his father's name and he was proud of it in its own way, but he was just so, because he had this strong love for the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. And this verse, as you can see, it's verse 37 in Surah Al-Ahzab. وَإِذْ تَقُولُ لِلَّذِي أَنْعَمَ اللَّهُ عَلَيْهِ وَأَنْعَمْتَ عَلَيْهِ. When you say to the person who Allah had kind of bestowed with his blessing, that the faith and everything in general, and you had also bestowed some favors upon him, the way you'd freed him from slavery, set him up in society, given him the status, facilitated the marriage, right? When you say to him, amsik alayka zawjaka wattaqillah, that hold on to your spouse and be mindful of God. وَتُخْفِي فِي نَفْسِكَ مَا اللَّهُ مُبْدِي. And you hide in yourself, like you conceal that which Allah is yet to bring into open. وَتَخْشَى النَّاسِ, and you have this fear of what may happen with people, right? وَاللَّهُ أَحَقُّ أَن تَخْشَى, but rather Allah, what we should all, this is not like kind of reprimanding the Prophet, but it's bringing to our understanding that we should all really, what is it to fear about people? If anything, have that thing only of God. Now, فَلَمَّا قَضَى زَيْدٌ مِنْهَا وَطَرًا, and when Zayd had finished his affair with her, his relationship with her, زَوَّجْنَاكَهَا, that we had married you to her, as in we had this destined. Why? Allah mentions لِكَيْ لَا يَكُونَ عَلَى الْمُؤْمِنِينَ حَرَجٌ, so that other believers do not find this to be a kind of a struggle. في أزواج أدعيائهم, because remember, in that society, marriages were not the way marriages are seen today, and I'm going to just mention that in a moment. إذا قضوا منهن وطرا وكان أمر الله مفعولا, that when their relationships come to an end and that which Allah has decreed was surely done. Now it's interesting that you see, and what I'm saying about marriages, the way they were perceived in that day and age, just to kind of clarify, right, let's put that there, right? So if you take Zayd as an example, now just for those people who are not familiar, Zayd, after he divorced Zainab, he married Kulthum, who's another cousin of the Prophet. She's actually Ibnatul Bayda, the daughter of Bayda, who is the daughter of Abdul Muttalib. So the first one, Umayma, who was the daughter of Abdul Muttalib, and her sister, Bayda, Zayd marries her daughter, right, who's called Kulthum. And then he has from her two children, Zayd, Ibn Zayd, and Ruqayya. And then he also marries Durra, who's the daughter of Abu Lahab, later on. And he marries Hind, bint Ibnatul Awam, who is the sister of Zubayr. All of them Qurashi, from Quraysh. Thereby, to a great extent, bringing a dent to that bigoted culture that existed, that we can't intermarry. And you can see by these kind of marriages that he was having, this was a norm. It wasn't, you see, because today marriages are so focused on this concept of romance, whereas in the past it was an element of pragmatism, of social participation. So it wasn't quite, so today when people are looking at this, they're obviously seeing marriages only done for romantic purposes. But in the past, that was actually one of the least purposes it was done for. It was actually done for pragmatism, for strengthening bonds, for kind of like social participation, for social cohesion, for strengthening the whole kind of society, moving forward, things like that. So now, right, so just to clarify that point, now I want to highlight some things here. People have said that the Prophet marrying Zainab, they've brought certain stories. Right, now these narrations they've brought, there's about 9 popular kind of narrations. One of them, which comes from Anas radiallahu an, the companion, it actually doesn't mention any of those kind of things. It just mentions that Zayd was having issues and then he divorces her, and later on the Prophet marries Zainab. And as I mentioned, her name used to be Barra, but when the Prophet married her, he named her Zainab. Then there's some narrations from Qatada. Now you see, there are no more narrations from the companions. From people now who never met the Prophet, and people who are problematic. I've spoken about Qatada in the past, and the way he would kind of blag certain chains in hadith. Now you have narrations from Qatada who starts to say that the Prophet, he doesn't go all out, but he mentions certain things. Oh, the Prophet was hoping Zayd would just kind of divorce her without asking him, and so on. And then as you go further descend down this ladder, you get Sha'bi. Now, Sha'bi says, he changes the story. He says that no, Zayd never came to see the Prophet went to see Zayd. So he adds this element. Doesn't add too much, but he just says it's the other way round. Ikrama now. Now, Ikrama is where the first, you reach that rung of the ladder. Now, this is where the key problems begin. This is the same person, people, who Imam Malik warned against, who I've told you time and time again. This is the guy who the whole apostasy killings come from. Yeah, it is through Ikrama. This person who was from the extremists in his day and age. He was known as from the Khawarij. He brings a narration. He's the first person in giving some kind of, he says, because the question is in this verse where Allah says, and you conceal in yourself, and we've mentioned it was the dream. Some of these people, this later interpretation that you concealed in yourself, within yourself, this desire to marry Zainab. So Ikrama is one of the first to openly, clearly open up that kind of this discourse in transmitting it in the narrations. Then you've got Abu Bakr ibn Abi Haythama, who starts to say, oh yeah, he starts affirming these stories. Yes, the Prophet went there. Yes, there's this thing. And Zainab had her hair uncovered. Even though, by the way, hijab isn't obligatory at this stage, but still, this is the story coming along. Then you've got somebody called Muhammad ibn Habban who says, Zainab, when the Prophet went there, Zainab wasn't actually dressed well. And these are all problematic narrators, and they continue to get worse. And so you've got somebody known as Kalbi, who is a kadhab. This person's utterly unacceptable. He says that the Prophet went there, these stories, and he became attracted. You've got then Muqatil. Now Muqatil says, oh yes, and the Prophet, when he goes there, he instantaneously becomes attracted to Zainab. And then to top it off, Abdurrahman ibn Zayd, this narrator who's unreliable, he says the Prophet sees her almost naked, that he's standing there and the wind kind of blows this the kind of curtain out the way, and he could see her almost kind of naked or semi-naked, and he becomes overwhelmed with her beauty. This is the kind of narrations that these people are saying. Right now, I want to highlight something here, where these things come from. Now, these are utterly unacceptable. The narrations are weak, da'if, batil, mawdu', right? These are unacceptable narrations. Where did all this come from, and why did some Muslims transmit them? You see, the problem is certain Muslims, people like Tabari, and there's others as well, but Tabari, who I fear maybe, like Tiberius of the Muslim Ummah, like the Roman Emperor. Tabari, the amount of damage people like this have done to this deen by just trying to, bring these narrations, all of these problematic narrations in Islam, which are weak, unacceptable, nonsense, are brought by people like Tabari. He brings them, these other people bring them. Oh, the Quran, the satanic verses, the this, the that. Now, this is a problem in and of himself. People like Tabari. Tabari's book and his transmissions are really questionable. But I want to get into why would these people do this? What was going on in their mentality? Now, you see, this the Muslims didn't just come up with something. I want to speak about something which I call, I've termed this the reactionary reverse bravado effect. Okay, the reactionary reverse bravado effect. This is what I believe happened in that early kind of community amongst Muslims. Now, what do I mean by this? You see, as Islam was spreading, as it spread into the Middle East, a huge amount of Christians come into Islam, or they interact. A lot of the Arabs in the Middle East were previously Christian. Most of them were. They embrace Islam. Now, some of them come to know of certain stories, and they find other things, and there's huge kind of polemics and debates
Christians in early Islam start to come up with this story that your prophet lusted over. There's such and such chain that your prophet lusted over this woman. Yeah. Now, I'm not just saying this. In fact, right, if I can just bring this. Now, here is an example. This was John of Damascus, who, as you can see, who's known as Didnt ibn Masoud. Now, here he is highlighting that, look, Muhammad, and he is very early on in Islam, by the way. So he is around. He's born in 675 to 749. So you can see, like, he's within that century of the Prophet's lifetime, within that very early Salaf period. So he would have been alive when several companions of the Prophet were alive, things like this. Now, he is writing that Muhammad had a friend named Zayd, and the man had a beautiful wife with whom Muhammad fell in love once. When they were sitting together, Muhammad said, "Oh, wow, oh, by the way, God has commanded me to take your wife." Now, you think, well, and he wasn't the only one bringing this kind of a discourse, trying to kind of insult the Prophet of Islam. You've got, now here's another example, a Byzantine ruler, Leo III, right? Once again, not that long, within that Salaf period, you can see 741, which is still going into you've got that late kind of Umayyad into early Abbasid kind of period going on. Still very early in Islam. Still Umayyad time, and later on it goes into the Abbasid. He is writing to Umar ibn Abdul Aziz. Now, Umar ibn Abdul Aziz rules from 99 to 101 Hijri, which is only, we're talking just less than a century after the Prophet ﷺ passing away in 10th Hijri, and this is in 99 or 100 Hijri. So within that 90 years, he's writing saying, look, by the end of the first, he reports that Muhammad's marriage to Zainab. Now, he does write it in strange, he gets some of the facts wrong, so he calls her Zida instead of Zainab. He says that, look, that he refers to the Prophet's seduction of Zida. Now, this is the kind of things that the Christians are saying at that time to Muslims. Now, what does this trigger? On one hand, it can trigger that Muslims kind of denounce this. But sometimes, unfortunately, we get what I'm calling this reactionary reverse bravado effect, where people start to say, well, they in a bravado manner try and own it. Like, yes, so what? And a great example of this, by the way, is if we're going to look at today, in this day and age, with the whole age of Aisha thing. So because non-Muslims have brought this age of Aisha to Muslims and highlighted it, what happens? Instead of Muslims actually saying, oh, well, they've actually got a point here, we need to look into our tradition and see all these things don't make sense, there's a reactionary reverse bravado effect. Like, yeah, so what? This is our way. What are you going to do about it? You can't tell us. This kind of reverse bravado takes place. Now, so what some of the early Muslims start to do is they start to say, well, yeah, but so what? The way David, in your sources, biblical sources, took Bathsheba, right? So if those of you that remember, Bathsheba was the wife of Uriah, and David, according to the biblical story, sees her, and she's so beautiful that he's overwhelmed with her beauty that he sends Uriah away on some battle to hopefully get killed, and he takes Bathsheba as his wife. And then, the prophet Nathan comes and kind of gives him that story. Now, this is in the biblical sources. We don't believe that as Muslims, but you see, some Muslims started to say the way David, your prophet, did this, so the prophet married Zainab, and And what? And you can see this in very early sources. Like, look, right here is an account from several Mufassirin bring this. This is Shawkani in his Fathul Qadir. You can see here that translating or interpreting these verses, that Sunnatullahi fil ladina khalaw min qabl, that the Sunnah of Allah in those who went before, that يعني يتزوج من النساء ما شاء, that he can marry who he wants from women. And what? He's a man. You know, this kind of attitude. So, and you can see here that them saying, and this, by the way, is Muslim sources. Ibn Sa'ad is transmitting it from Muhammad ibn Ka'b al-Qurazi, you know, from the offspring of Bani Qurayza. He says the way Sulaiman had 1,000 women, so what? Our Prophet took Zainab. Here, Ibn Jurayj, which is transmitted by Ibn al-Munzir and Tabrani, and you can see this is another nightmare in and of itself. Ibn Jurayj is a huge calamity in hadith. By the way, one of the transmitters of Jesus is going to come back. Obviously, some of the narrations go through him, because you can see this. Now, look at what Ibn Jurayj is saying. He says, oh, sunnatullahi fil ladina khalaw min qabl. He says, qala Dawood wal mar'a, the way David took the lady, wallati nakah, and he says, and he married her, وَزُوِّجَهَا ismuha Alisa. He comes out with, maybe some of them say transmit her name as Alisa, but generally Bathsheba, according to the biblical sources. He says, فَذَلِكَ السُنَّةِ فَذَلِكَ سُنَّةٌ فِي مُحَمَّدْ وَزَيْنَبْ وَكَانَ أَمْرُ اللَّهِ قَدْرًا مَقْدُورًا. And Allah had destined it. And look, he goes on to say here, كَذَلِكَ مِن سُنَّتِهِ فِي دَاوُودْ وَالْمَرْعَى وَالنَّبِي وَزَيْنَبْ. So this is Ibn Jurayj, who's alive around that time of Umar ibn Abdul Aziz, and when that king is writing and he's in early kind of Islam, that kind of young Tabi'i age. This is him. Now, he is openly embracing this vision. He's saying that, yes, so the way David took, you know, Bathsheba, and our Prophet, you know, he found Zainab attractive and took her. So you can see, guys, that when I say that how the Christian narrative creeps into Islam, it unfortunately does. On several occasions, we don't understand that most of the early Muslims, when Islam spread into the Middle East, were Christians. So this was something I wanted to highlight, and just to take a look at, let's just, coming to some of the questions, I want to kind of like highlight some of the questions here. Right, so those people having a kind of digressing on the, those people digressing, if you just pay attention, people, right? So this is quite important. Now, you see, let's take a look at some of the key criticisms, the questions. So one of them, they've said, oh, well, the Prophet, this verse of the Quran says, well, and you were concealing within. It was actually to do with this lust. If that was the case, let's say that is the case, right? That the Prophet was concealing lust. What? And then the Prophet makes up the Quran to reveal it to people, so he can legitimize him getting married to Zainab. Why would he reveal it like that? Why would he make it up to criticize himself? To say, oh, you're concealing something, and Allah is about to bring it into the open, if it is lust that he's concealing. Why would he do that to himself? Because since, according to a lot of these atheists, the Prophet is making these verses up anyway. So why make it up where you're going to, you know, why shoot yourself in the foot? So this is one point. Secondly, if Allah is saying in this verse that, look, and whatever you're concealing, Allah is about to bring out into the open. Where did Allah bring out that, oh, the Prophet lusted? Allah brought out, وَزَوَّجْنَاكَهَا, and we married you to her. So that's to highlight that. The other point is that the Prophet lusting over her. Right. Now, I want to highlight something here. Zainab was the cousin of the Prophet who grew up around the Prophet. She was somebody that was very close to the Prophet's household. There was no barrier at all categorically in the Prophet marrying her. In fact, the narrations say when the Prophet came to propose on behalf of Zayd, she actually thought, oh, the Prophet had come to propose for her. And she was totally elated. If the Prophet wanted to marry her, he could have married her. It was no, there was no, it's not like she was somebody who came from Persia or Rome or somewhere from, she was from the Prophet's household. The Prophet knew her all of her life. It wasn't something that, you know, she was in her early 30s when she migrated from Mecca after with the Prophet. She was a grown woman, a mature woman. It wasn't something, and this thing that the Prophet became so overwhelmed with her beauty. I'm sure. Look, they were all beautiful women. I don't mean it in any sense like that. But let's just be realistic. If this was the case, the Prophet was so overwhelmed with her beauty, this was never highlighted by any of the other wives as, oh, that was something that she was such a beautiful woman that the Prophet, it was never, whereas it is highlighted sometimes with other wives of the Prophet. The other thing is that if she was so beautiful, the Prophet had already seen her on so many occasions. Way before he'd married her off, he knew her. You know, so how is it that somebody you've known and seen all, you know, most of your mature life, and they're so close to your household, they come and go, you come and go, and the whole thing, and then one day you see her without her hair covered, and oh my God, you're enamored. I mean, let's just be real on that. I mean, the story could add up if you're saying this is a total stranger, you've never seen this person, you see her one day and you're like, wowed. Does this even make any sense? Right? So these are nonsensical. People are just trying to get a lot of mud and throw it on the honor of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. And I say something, you know, that it's interesting that the Prophet, in that verse, it highlighted, you know, وَتَخْشَى النَّاسَ وَاللَّهُ أَحَقُّ أَن تَخْشَى. The Prophet, it's not that he feared people, but he just felt that this is only going to give ammunition to try and hurt him. That the Prophet didn't really think that marrying her would be a good thing. As in, not that she wasn't a good thing, but that she was a great person, but that the social thing, he was already struggling with the amount of resistance against the message, people making up rumors, doing this, doing that. He didn't want more kind of like social drama. Now, yet the Prophet marries her to put this bigoted kind of prejudiced cultural practice at bay, to kind of do away with it, nip it in the bud. And this fear that people will use this as ammunition, wallahi, if anything, is so true that till this very day, they try and hurl it as an insult against the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. So I would say, you know, if anything, I would plead to the voice of reason that just being fair, like, I mean, this is, if people are not Muslim, that does this really add up? That, you know, just trying to say, oh, just trying to insult the Prophet based on these things, based on, oh, he must have become so enamored, he must have become, this just makes so much sense. The narrations are baseless. Okay. And really, more so, this is an explanation, especially for Muslims who wanted some kind of a background. That, who was Zainab, first of all? That she was the cousin of the Prophet ﷺ. Who was Zayd? And how close he was, and his relationship with the Prophet, and how he was known as his adopted son, and how the Prophet initially wanted to break the social taboo of marrying from the different classes. And he did, and Zayd went on to successfully, even after Zainab, marry so many other Qurashi women, right? And I've said that marriage in that day and age didn't quite reflect marriage today, which is centered around romance, whereas then it was more around practicalities and pragmatism. And also understanding. So what we've understood, most of the narrations, all apart from the one which is from a companion, Anas, which says nothing about this, just mentions that Zayd was having issues and he divorces her, and later on the Prophet marries her. But all the non-companions like Qatada and then Ikrama, who's a key problem, and I've always warned against this narrator, Ikrama, right? And people like this, and Muqatil and Kalbi, and you've got Ibn Zayd, and these people bringing fabricated narrations. And when you look at the verse of the Quran, so these are things that I'm just summing up that we've taken a look at. And where did this originate from? It originates with that Christian polemics, the kind of debate, the discourse, where people are finding faults with Islam, where they're trying to criticize the Prophet, where they're even getting the names wrong. Oh, this woman called Zida, Zeba, whatever. They're mixing things up. Zida. Oh, it's Zainab. Now, this is the Prophet seducing women. These kind of allegations are being thrown. And then we have a kind of reactionary reverse bravado effect, where people, instead of kind of saying, well, we need to kind of realize that this stuff, they unnecessarily try to own stuff out of this kind of almost this bravado attitude, and thereby causing more, adding, insult to injury, really, to the Islamic heritage. So, and this is how it then creeps into our books, like Tabari's book and this, and which are not reliable books anyway, by the way, but it creeps into them. So this was an overview of this whole thing. So I hope, inshallah, it gives some clarity to people who are unfamiliar, especially Muslims, who have, just had a lot of questions around this topic, that to us as Muslims, the honor of the Prophet ﷺ is obviously first and foremost. So, and I always say, look, within reason, we should always look at these kind of things and not just, even if certain Muslim scholars have said them, if it compromises the honor of the Prophet ﷺ, we do not throw the Prophet under the bus. Those people, that's just their opinions. We are not kind of bound to follow them. Cool, guys. I hope that's of some help. Let's move on to some other questions. Right, now, how to message Mufti privately. Well, you can just Instagram, DM me. That's it. Let me just bring up. Oh, damn, what's going on here? Right, what's the Facebook, mi gente? Alright, just bringing this up. Let's just see what the Facebook people are saying. Alright, people, I hope that's been helpful. Right. I appreciate you, admire your intellect, sir. Shukran. Sharminda kar rahe aap. Right, where's the YouTube people gone? What on earth are the YouTube people chatting about? Some kind of nonsense going on, talking about their own kind of things. Right, so, oh my God, is that the time? I think it's masala time, people. So those of you that don't know, my beloved, right, so my beloved Sheikh Asrar is back on the scene, people, and he's been just obsessed and overwhelmed with me, and he's taken social media several times this week, actually, within 1 week. Somebody who doesn't call my name, you never call, you never write. And then within 1 week, you do 2 posts, 1 live video, all about me. Touch kar diya yaar, touch. Right, so speaking of social media, that kind of reminds me that we've got...
So social media is a no-go for students of knowledge. If someone thinks
hear that?
This is impossible, I only got a phone after I got married. A simple phone. So why do students of knowledge need a phone? If you need to ring your parents, what I used to, because your parents have rights over you. When I would go to Damascus, I would ring them once a month for 2 minutes. Yes? Place the 500 lira card into the phone box. In those times, the smartphones were not out. Ring them and say, I'm okay, I'm fine. They would say, do you need anything? I would say, maybe someone is coming next month. Please send this, and that's it. Yes? Now, why does a student of knowledge need a smartphone? So To improve your studies, you cannot have social media accounts. You cannot be responding on controversial issues.
So, right. So, people, I don't know if you could. We just bring that back. I don't know if you saw that, but Sheikh Asrar was saying, let me just see. Right. Sheikh Asrar was saying that what is the point of what is social media for students of knowledge? He said, I didn't even have a phone. I just used to make 2 phone calls in a month. 2. Data package, data packet. Small data packet. Small packet. No. Data packet. Small data. So he used to only call.
So social media is a no-go.
On Alright, you still only call home on these kind of things. So this is the kind of the logic of I'm serious. This is how Sheikh Asrar is advising us to kind of really go about dealing with social media. So he used to make two phone calls to his parents a month, and all he used to say was, "Are you okay? Yes. Okay. Do you need anything? No. Okay. Goodbye." That said, our beloved has now taken to social media, people. And here he is once again. And now he's taken to social media, but this time with a newly found obsession about me that, why has... Jahannami, 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 Jahannami. So he's calling me a kafir, that I'm a kafir for discussing certain issues. I'm a hidden atheist who's obviously got an agenda against Islam. And here he is, our beloved. And he's not sending a kiss here. Although possibly misconstrued, but now it seems evident it's definitely not. And there we can see that's the lion of Ahl Sunnah. Meow. Hamari cat, hum per attack. This is the thing, people. So Sheikh Asrar, our beloved, has really kind of become so upset, really, that why has Mufti been discussing these things? So he's taken it to social media. He's and his logic has been, this is how you're going to fix me. This is an extract or a part of a paragraph from his Facebook post, people. So he's talking about me here. The individual, I believe, is an atheist who doesn't have the courage to openly denounce faith. Hi yaar, kya kare? Right? And I lack an absolute methodology. So as you can see, but he does give a cure. Alhamdulillah, it's he's not like he doesn't give a cure. He does give a cure. He says the only cure to help me is to either ignore me or insult my mother. I mean, are you for real? I mean, this is actually on Sheikh Asrar's Facebook page, right? So,
go crazy! Go stupid! Go crazy! Go stupid! Go crazy! Yeah! Go stupid! Go crazy!
Get it into my head, right? And all I can say is, people, I can't do it. I just cannot get seriously.
So social media is a no-go for students.
His logic, like, what is? So let me get this right. that the only way to do this is to call me an atheist, maybe ignore me, which he obviously isn't doing. Is going against his 2 phone calls a month data packet, and using the internet, not ignoring me, writing excessively about me. But the other way to cure me is to insult my mom. So I've been trying to figure out, like the whole night I've been thinking, yaar isme logic koi hoga yaar, koi logic. But the whole night can go by, as you can see here. I've been like, but I can't seem to get the I can't seem to understand the logic of Sheikh Asrar. That he must have some wisdom going on, people. It's not like how do we get about this? What? This one not nice. Let me just bring up here. All right, so just bringing up the so this has had me kind of trying to figure out his logic, and I've been quite perturbed. So what is this issue all about? So let's take a look at this actual issue. As you can see, Andy has asked, why don't you? And the irony is, somebody sent me a picture of Sheikh Asrar coming live and saying, look, I'm going to do a live to discuss Mufti Abu Layth. Now, and he said, please, the status said something like, you can't be rude, but otherwise I don't mind any kind of questions. I thought, acha. But I genuinely thought to myself, like, what? First of all, I thought to myself that, what are we, like 8 years old? That is this how this works now? That I know I'm gonna give you this argument. No. I'm gonna use the categorical. No. I'm going to come back with a certain data from site. No. I know. Let's just insult his mom. Like, is that like really? Like, I honestly, when I saw that, somebody sent that to me, and I just honestly, you should have seen the amount of emojis I put in laughter. But I really thought to myself that I must be really like he must be so obsessed with. I must be really getting to him. I must be getting to him so much that for somebody like him to really stoop so pathetically in saying, I know, I mean, insult my mom. I mean, what is that it? I know this guy's got an issue with his iman. I know how to fix it. On 3, guys. Teri man. Is this how we fix it? I must have hit some real raw nerve, I'm telling you. You naughty Asrar. Ever since he claims to have found Ya'juj and Ma'juj. Ya Dhul Qarnayn. In fact, he's not Dhul Qarnayn, he's Dhul Phawnayn. He's got, Phawnayn means the 2 phones. He's got 2 phone calls a month. Ya Dhul Phawnayn. So Dhul Phawnayn thinks he's kind of like, this is like, I don't know, he must be so, I'm just trying to figure out his mind, like, what? Wow. I must have really hit forget a nerve, I must have hit the entire nervous system. But Right. So, I mean, he can if he wants. I mean, if he really wants to insult my mum, fine. I'll let him use one of those 2 phone calls he has a month. Oh, is that your heart's is that your deepest desire? Go for it, man. Is that it? Right. So let's take a look at 2 calls. Hi, Dhul Fawnain. I've got the 2 phone calls, and I discovered Ya'juj and Ma'juj. I really think, honestly, that Sheikh Asrar is actually at this stage in life going through maybe some kind of there's some issues going on. I think there are, seriously. But I just want to, hey, Dhul Fawnain, I just want to say, if you want to use one of those 2 phone calls to call me, I'm here for you, man. You can talk to me. Tell me what's bothering you, yaar. Talk to me, my beloved. So, anyway, now I want to also highlight what is this issue that he's. What is it that Dhul Fawnain has kind of he's trying to make a big deal out of? And I thought, look, I tell you what, let me give the whole backdrop, the whole kind of discourse presented to you guys objectively. Now, I was asked in a previous Q&A about the bodies of the prophets. Do you believe that they remain completely preserved the way they are? And I said that, look, there's this hadith, and many people have. And by the way, my beloved, my beloved small data package, Dhul Fawnain, he shared that clip of mine, Asrar did. And I was kind of grateful, actually. I was like, wow, advertising on my behalf. You teasing me, you naughty. You're giving me mixed messages here. I'm kind of confused, confused. Now I understand why, you don't call, because you only have 2 phone calls a month. But anyway, getting back to the topic. So I said, look, there's a difference of opinion. However, it doesn't have to be literal. So he's kind of gone on about this, that this is a kind of, this is the issue he's kind of picked up on. So some people have asked me, do you mind kind of elaborating on this issue? So sure, of course, I'm happy to do so, at your service, Right, so, right, people. Now, this issue of the bodies of the prophets, I want to begin with, first of all, by clarifying that, look, as Muslims, it's really important that these kind of issues, anything discussing the Prophet, is a sensitive issue, right? Because to Muslims, the Prophet is the most dear person. So, by and large, not just Muslims, but any people of any faith, the people of their faith, the founding figures or the amazing personalities of their faith, they have a huge reverence towards those people, as we as Muslims have towards the Prophet ﷺ. Now, many Muslims, we will have a kind of devotional outlook. Now, there's two kind of pathways. Okay, now I'm going to go down both. The first one is brief. It's the devotional pathway. Now, this pathway is where you just speak about somebody reverently, and you just kind of you venerate them, and you speak so, you don't ascribe anything. You don't even bring into a discussion a word that you feel might be kind of, unbefitting to that kind of. So it's a kind of full of etiquette. This devotional pathway, Muslims have this towards the Prophet ﷺ and towards prophets or towards great figures and people and towards the companions, and we understand this, and that's just a devotional perspective. So you'll see sometimes people will sometimes they'll exaggerate these things as well. So they'll say things like, oh, the Prophet never even had a shadow, for example, or the Prophet wasn't even really a human being, some people will say. Like he was actually something made out of lights and a light and not made out of like human stuff. Now, this is a kind of exaggeration down this pathway of devotionalism. Now, that's fine. It happens everywhere. It's not like, somebody could say, look, I believe that the Prophet wasn't even really a human being. He was, superhuman. He was like this. He was kind of like, some people will feel that they won't say he's God, but he had kind of godlike powers and he had all these things, and he never really even needed to eat food. He was just in the avatar of a human, but he wasn't really a kind of human. He didn't really need food. He didn't need these things. He didn't need any of this. This is just how he portrayed himself amongst people. He was kind of like an angel. Now, that's fine. I mean, that's from a devotional perspective. People are saying these things. So sometimes some people will say things like, so just as when you're speaking about God, now let's say people are speaking about God and we say, Alhamdulillah, khaliqu kulli shay. All praise be to Allah, the creator of everything. Now, one could say, look, in Islam, many people consider the pig to be impure. Now, Allah is equally the creator of the pig. But out of etiquette, people don't say that in the same sentence. They won't say, oh, the creator of the pig. But because they associate that negatively, I'm just saying, giving an example. Or they wouldn't say the creator of the devil. Allah, the creator of the devil. Although he is the creator of the devil. But out of poor etiquette, you wouldn't. That would be deemed like not befitting to say it like that. Even though it is from an analytic perspective, from an objective perspective, right? It is true, Allah did create the devil. It's not like the devil is a separate God. But you wouldn't say it like that from a devotional perspective. So I want to clarify these two perspectives. The devotional one is not meant to be kind of like teaching facts. It's just teaching nice things. Even if they're not factually true, but they're just nice. Like people will say things like, oh, such and such. And they'll say this about prophets as well, but they'll say, like I mentioned, they say that the prophet, for example, didn't have a shadow. Now, they think that's a nice thing because they associate shadow with darkness and whatever. I mean, to me, that doesn't necessarily sound like something like a praise, but to some people it does, so they've said it. Now, they'll say, oh, the prophet never, no fly ever sat on the prophet. So this is a devotional speech. And it's fine, people do this all the time, but this is not really fact speak. But we're not trying to do fact speak. We're just trying to inculcate the love of the Prophet into people. So when you're teaching people, you say magnificent things. It's like poetic imagery. Yeah, shukran. It is like that. And that's absolutely fine. We do that about everybody. We do that about people, and why not about the best of people, the Messenger of Allah sallallahu alaihi wasallam himself. That said, sometimes you will have fact speak, like this kind of factual speak where you're speaking objectively, like where did the Prophet live? Was he a human being? Like objectively speaking. Now, objectively speaking, it wouldn't make sense if the Prophet was not a normal human being, like a human being, human, not an angel or made out of light or something, non-human. Because then he wouldn't be the best example for us. Because if Allah was to send somebody that isn't human to be an example for us, we would say, well, obviously we're humans. He wasn't really human. He was kind of human, but not really human. So we need an example that's for us. And the Quran says that, tell them, قُلْ إِنَّمَا أَنَا بَشَرٌ مِثْلُكُمْ, I am a human just like you and from you. Allah says we did not, مَا كُنَّا, that we would not send a messenger except from the people, because he would be one of them. And in that is a huge accolade and praise. It demonstrates the majesty really of the Prophet ﷺ, that he was from us, he was us. You understand? But he was like the best of us. Now, that's from an objective perspective. We have kind of factual speak. So people, if we were to ask, did the Prophet need to eat food? Well, of course, he was a human being. He would need to eat food. The Prophet would feel pain if there was pain. He would feel joy. He would have emotions. All human things, he was a human. So it's it's irrelevant trying to then, you see, if you start teaching devotional speak as factual speak, the problem with this is that there will be many Muslims, especially nowadays, there's many, especially the younger generation, they don't buy into some of the kind of devotional kind of qualities or the devotional descriptions, that imagery. They don't buy into it as literal. And some of them find it disturbing because they think then, oh, well, then the Prophet, that doesn't really make any sense to them. Now, Islam is for everyone. And there may be a time to speak devotionally, but there is definitely a time when a person speaks factually. Now, this question that does the Prophet, for example, does their body disintegrate or when it's buried? I will kind of highlight this discussion in just a moment. Right now, I've said that this hadith doesn't have to mean that. Now, there is a hadith that these people are relying on. Now, you see, ironically, the hadith they're relying on isn't even that sahih. It's actually the hadith that they rely on is transmitted in Abu Dawood, it's in Sunan Nisa'i, Ibn Majah, Ibn Hibban, Musnad of Ahmad, Hakim and Darmi, more or less, and some others transmitter as well. And this hadith that they rely on is by a companion called Aus ibn Aus. And by the way, even this companion, there's a huge confusion on who he was. They're not even sure who he was. Some people say his name was Aus ibn Aus. Some people have said his name was Aus ibn Awais. Awais ibn Aus. Some people have said his name was Aus ibn Abi Awais. Imam Bukhari said no, they were three separate people. You've got some people saying, Abu Nu'aym saying no, these are like the same people. You've got Ibn Ma'in saying they're the same people. You've got some saying no, his name was Aus ibn Hudhayfa, a different companion. So they're not even too sure about this. Like, there's a confusion, an element of confusion around this person, right? So Aus ibn Aus transmits this hadith. And by the way, the people who transmit it from him, there's many problematic people in this chain, like Abdurrahman ibn, there's a particular Rawi, Abdullah ibn, you've got Abdurrahman ibn Yazid ibn Jabir is one who is definitely problematic, and a lot of people, Bukhari spoken about him. Abdurrahman ibn Abi Hatim brings him and talks about him, that his father Abu Hatim problematized him. There's people like Hussein al-Ju'afi in the chain, Bukhari, Darqutni. All these people have raised issues with this chain, but I'll come to that in a moment. But this hadith is Aus ibn Aus, or Aus ibn Abi Awais, or whatever you want to call him, Aus ibn Hanzala, Aus ibn Hudhayfa. This person, he says that the Prophet was telling them that the Prophet's life was beneficial for them and his passing away was beneficial for them, his death was beneficial for them. So the companion actually says, Kayfa wa qad arimta? How can you help us when you've become just dust? Arimta. Now, arimta is actually like when the bones have become useless and nothing. And it's actually kind of like, it's not necessarily a pleasant term. And the Prophet says that in this hadith, he carries on. Obviously, it began by the whole thing about send salam upon me, that this, even when I pass away, it's still beneficial for you and so on. And then the person says, how when, waqad arimta, and your bones have become nothing and dust. And the Prophet said, Inna Allah harrama ala al-ard an ta'kula ajsad al-anbiya, that Allah has prohibited the earth from consuming the bodies of the prophets. Now, this hadith, like I said, coming from Aus ibn Aus, or Aus ibn Abi Awais, or Awais ibn Aus, or Aus ibn Hudhayfa, whatever his name was, this Sahabi radiallahu an, right? Now, this hadith, even though many people have said it's okay, it's Sahih, Bin Baz said it's okay, we'll consider it okay, Albani said it's okay, we'll accept it, Sahih, put it in his thing, but it's got problems in the chain. But let's just take it right now as it's acceptable. Let's take it as that. Did this have to be a literal hadith? Now, I've said that there are two understandings. There's a devotional understanding, and I feel that from that perspective, people would take it as, no, this is literal. The other understanding is that this is more a reflection on the efforts of the Prophet and do not go to waste. Now, this is what some people like Asrar Dhul Fawnain has kind of made a huge issue out of that. How can Mufti Abu Layth say this? Right now, first of all, I just want to highlight, apart from the issues of the chain, why is this an issue? Why is this an issue? Because they're saying that, this would otherwise seem disrespectful. But I'm saying, look, I'm speaking right now analytically, objectively, factually, that in that case, are you saying that imagine the prophets or people, because by the way, this isn't just restricted to the prophets. The scholars have put in there the shuhada, the martyrs, who, by the way, there isn't a single sahih hadith about the martyrs, but they've put them in there. Then they've put the pious people in there. Then people like Zarqani and other people have put scholars in there. So, I mean, by that standard, I guess, do I qualify? Or they've put ulama in there, they've put hufad of hadith. Once again, do I qualify? I'm a hafid of, hufad of the Quran, I'm a hafid of the Quran. So they've put, scholars have put all kinds of people in. They've put scholars, hafid of the Quran, that the soil can't eat us. I'm a hafid of the Quran. Whether people want to consider me an alim or not, but I am a hafid. So according to many scholars, the soil would never consume me as well. Now, look, I'm just saying that in that case, are we saying that these people, imagine if they weren't buried, they were just left just not under the ground, above ground, that their bodies wouldn't, do human bodies not require nourishment, life, blood flowing in order to stay alive? Does a body not disintegrate anyway, regardless of soil? Does it not do that? I mean, in that case, why bury the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam? Why not just leave him as an example for everybody so we can come and see the Prophet? Why does he need to be? Why does Allah in the Quran teach us to bury people? Why, he says about the sons of Adam fought and then we showed them how to bury. Why? They were, why not just keep the prophets always there? Everybody can just see the body's going to stay intact. It doesn't really, in that case, it doesn't need nutrients. They don't need food. They don't need anything. They're not human, by the way, in that case. They are human, but non-human laws apply to them. So look, when you say this, the problem is that yes, in devotional speak, it may sound okay to certain people. But there's many young people today who just won't accept that. And because of these kind of things, they will then reject Islam. Now, you have to think that what are you actually saying? When there's a factual question, are you saying that, in that case, these people, because why not the companions then? Are they not awliya? Why not Abu Bakr and Umar? Why do they need to be buried? Why not just leave them there? Surely their bodies can't disintegrate. So, look, this becomes silly. And then the other thing is, by the way, even if you look at hadith, there's a much stronger hadith, by the way, much stronger. Now check this out. This is actually very fascinating. There's a much stronger hadith. Right, I'm just bringing this up. Right, so there's a much stronger hadith, which is in Bukhari, it's in Muslim, it's in, first and foremost, the Muwatta of Imam Malik. It's transmitted by Abu Huraira, and you've got this hadith where the Prophet said that he tells them that, he said, Kullu ibn Adam, every son of Adam, ta'kulul ard, the earth will decompose their bodies. And then it says, check this out, illa ajbu Zainab, except the sacrum bone. The sacrum, which is just above the tailbone, the coccyx. So just above that is the sacrum. Now, except that, why? Because minhu khuliq wa fihi yurakkab. Because from here he was created, and from here he will be brought back, from the sacrum. According to this Sahih hadith, not only do all humans disintegrate, but all human sacrums never disintegrate. This is a Sahih hadith according to all human beings, that our sacrum, even though the sacrum is one of the last bones to disintegrate, but according to this, it never disintegrates because we are made out of the sacrum. Now, that is actually very interesting, this thing. Why? Because I want to demonstrate, those of you that are wondering here, just to bring this up. This is the sacrum, by the way. So that bone over there. And if you're wondering, this term sacrum, it comes from the Latin sacred. Why does it come from that? Because they believed, there was a belief that this was a sacred bone within the body in ancient Roman beliefs. So we're not talking about Muslim or Christian. Before them, we're talking about before Muslims and Christians, we're talking about Romans. The Greeks believed that this was a kind of holy bone, a sacred bone. Why? Because it was one of the last to ever disintegrate. So they felt that maybe human beings were made out of this. This in cross culture, the Mesoamerican kind of native culture also considered this sacrum to be kind of sacred. The Indian cultures considered the Kundalini thing to be around that region and the pelvic region about there. So many cultures historically felt that the sacrum was some kind of sacred kind of entity, because whenever they saw the humans, they saw this. When they disintegrate, they saw this part, and they felt that, wow, this must be represent something. This then creeps into Christian, through the Roman heritage, it creeps into Christianity. So they start writing about this, how this is sacred. In fact, they then refer this to the Psalms, the book of Psalms. They say that this is what it's referring to in 34, where it says that there, it mentions that all bones, that even though that destruction will come over all bones, it says, except it mentions one of them shall not be broken. Now, although this is in Psalms, later Christians felt this was speaking about the sacrum. Now, from there, it comes into the Muslim. It's once again, you see that kind of virus creeping in. And in Arabic, they call it ajbu dhanab. The ajb of the dhanab, of the tail, because it's above the coccyx, the tailbone. So you see here Muslims, and all of a sudden it becomes a hadith, apparently, that not only no human sacrum ever disintegrates. And this is in Bukhari, and it's in Muslim. And I believe that Imam Malik brought this on purpose to show the nonsensical aspect of it. That this, once again, most likely Abu Huraira had probably got this from Ka'b al-Ahbar, who Imam Malik brings in his Muwatta, that Abu Huraira would go and spend entire time, like he would take out time and go to Ka'b al-Ahbar and learn his religious scriptures from him. Now, this most likely, the fact that Imam Malik brings that separately and then brings this from Abu Huraira, in my understanding, is Imam Malik kind of showing that you have to be wary what's going on here, that this doesn't make any sense. And this seems to have a Christian origin. And in fact, we know today it's even predates Christianity. It's from the Greco-Roman period. And it's in other cultures as well, the whole sacrum thing. So my point is, if you look at this hadith, according to this hadith, no human thing will disintegrate. But from a factual perspective, we're not going to say that. There is another hadith, by the way. Most of the books that quote that hadith of Aus ibn Aus, and this is interesting, quote this hadith, people, and it's definitely worth kind of having a look into, that they bring this hadith. So you've got most of those books. So once again, it will be books like, it will be in, it's in Abu Dawud, in Nasa'i, Ibn Majah, it will be in Al-Hakim brings it. It's in most of those similar kind of books, I believe the Musnad of Ahmad and other narrations. And it's known as the narration of Ajuzu Bani Israel, the old lady of Bani Israel. Now in this, what happens is the Prophet is speaking about something, and he says that, oh, and it's transmitted by several companions, beginning with Abu Musa al-Ash'ari. It's also transmitted by Ali ibn Abi Talib. It's transmitted by Ibn Abbas. It's transmitted by other companions as well. And some chains are critiqued as well, I'm not saying. But to be fair, the other chain, it's much stronger than the other chain. It's got several people transmitting it. In this, what happens is the Prophet is telling people, oh, why don't you be like the people, the old lady of the Israelites? And they say, who's the old lady of the Israelites? And it's an incident that's going on, but the Prophet then relates. He says that when the Israelites wandered in the wilderness and they were lost, Moses consults with them that what's going on? Have we kind of missed something? And some of the leaders of the Israelites tell him that Inna Yusuf akhadha alayna ahdan or mawthiqan, that Yusuf alayhi salam had taken an oath with us, a kind of like a solemn pledge with Allah, like he had taken this oath with us that were we to ever leave Egypt, we had to take his bones with us. Now this is Yusuf alayhi salam, the Prophet. So in that, Musa alayhi salam says, oh, is that so? So they say, let's ask, let's try and get the whereabouts of where Yusuf alayhi salam is buried. Now they find this old lady who then shows them. Now in this, and then there's some kind of disagreement, and then eventually they go to this place, they dig up, and this is the hadith. They dig up, فَاسْتَخْرَجُوا عِظَامَ Yusuf alayhi salam. They then took out the bones of Yusuf alayhi salam. And they then carried them with them. In the Christian tradition and Jewish tradition, these things are relics. And these are well known. The bones of saints and all these things in the Judeo-Christian tradition are relics. And it's a well-known kind of phenomenon. So now I know some scholars will then say, oh, by bones it meant here, it didn't really mean bones, it meant this. But then you're just taking a metaphorical example. You're just doing exactly the same thing, are you not? You're just saying, oh, but it says bones, but no, it doesn't really. But in the actual hadith, it says, فَاسْتَخْرَجُوا عِظَامَ Yusuf. They took out the bones of the relics of Yusuf, and it says bones, and they took them with them to the promised land. So, and that's actually a hadith which, once again, these things are in the same books you've got that are actually transmitting the other hadith as well. And there's several companions transmitting it. It's not just Aus ibn Aus or so on. There's people, Abu Musa al-Ash'ari, there's people like Ali ibn Abi Talib, there's Ibn Abbas, and some of the chains are weak, I accept that. But I'm saying equally the other chains have criticism as well. And what I'm doing here is factual academic speech. So it's not in any way, it isn't kind of detracting from the qualities of the prophets. If anything, it kind of emboldens them as the great messengers they were, that they were from us as human beings. They are the perfect example for us. How can they be examples if they are not like us as human beings? So I think this kind of, taking this kind of factual speak and saying that, well, oh, if you say this, we're going to consider this disrespectful and we're going to call you a kafir now. And you think, well, okay. I mean, first of all, that's so absurd. Secondly, these are actually the narrations. If I show you the hadith in Bukhari and Muslim and Muwatta, where it says about the sacrum of all human beings can never be consumed, you're going to say, yeah, but that's not factual. If I show you the hadith of Yusuf alayhi salam where they take out, you say, yeah, but that's metaphorical as well. And you say, well, okay, well, this one actually has a lot of problems, and even this narrator, this companion, they're not too sure what his name was, and even this, and then Abdurrahman ibn Yazid ibn Jabir has problems, Hussein al-Ju'afi in the chain has problems, all these things have problems, but even if we accept it, can't this be metaphorical? No, that can never be metaphorical. And you think, well, Islam is much more vast than that. And the thing is that, are these people, what message are you ultimately, I understand you're giving a devotional kind of respectful message, but if the question is a factual, objective question, then you have to understand that for many people, this could break their iman. It's not like there's many people who are not content with being told things like, oh, by the way, scholars, anybody who's memorized the Quran can never, as a human being, you can just leave him now on this table, even after he's passed away, because he's a saint. His body will just stay like that. Because that to many people is just absurd. Like, they won't accept that. I mean, why do people bury people then? I mean, why do they do that? Because think about it, all these saints and martyrs and all these great people, why not just keep them there as examples? To help people afterwards, to kind of say, hey, did you want to know what that saint looked like? There he is. Because you, as well as everybody else, knows that that's not how the laws that Allah has set in this world. The human body is the human body. It needs life, it needs nutrients, it needs oxygen, it needs these kind of things. It's not, and that in any way, if anything, it reaffirms the faith of people. And the irony is, these very same people who use this to say, like Asrar now, our Dhul Qarnayn of this age, who's found Gog and Magog, he feels that, oh, this is disrespectful to say this, yet he will say, oh, the Prophet became clumsy by becoming bewitched, and yet the Prophet married a child, and he feels that's not disrespectful. He feels that saying that the Prophet had a sexual life and relationship with a child, oh, but we're not going to call her a child, we're just going to call her a grown-up kid, like that makes it better. And that stuff is utterly blasphemous. You're blaspheming against the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. And yet, in a sense of kind of reactionary reverse bravado, they embrace that nonsense. And then they question actual things, right? To say, oh, well, this is a reason we're going to call such and such a kafir. Call anybody. And by the way, if people want to call me a kafir all you want. Like I often say, this ain't your dad's deen. You can't chuck out whoever you want. So, guys, we went on quite a bit today. All right. So I hope that, but these were very important topics. So it kind of required the extension. People, I think we've got to wrap it up with that. It's been one hell of a show. Orale, people. Orale. It's been awesome. As always, you guys have kind of just hacked it there. You've been through, I got to say, it's been over 2.5 hours now. So people, much love. Take very good care of yourselves. Any messages people were saying about, look, reaching out to me and stuff like this. I will say that, look, Instagram, you can message me. Do subscribe to all my channels, people. What are you doing? What is this miserliness? Like as well. It doesn't cost you anything when you're there. Feel free to like. I've got this. You can be a supporter on Facebook as well if you like. And guys, with that, my du'as, my kind du'as, take very good care of yourselves. Much love. Mwah. Have a very good night wherever you are. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi ta'ala wa barakatuh.